When do you think is a good time for couples to have sex again?
When it feels like it's okay.
Okay. After you have a baby, I think the last thing on a woman's mind is let's go have some sex again.
So I know that there are some out there that are in the completely different camp, but
Yep.
I think the majority would feel that way. Yes.
Because the last thing on your wife's minds right now is being physically intimate with you because they are physically intimate with the baby.
That's the touch thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, right.
Sometimes some people feel that it's like, well, if I can't have that, there's not going to be anything. And this is the time that, like, offering a massage, offering to draw a bathtub, offering to do different things of like just checking in of like, hey, can I help with dinner? Can I help out around the house?
Welcome back to the Prime Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Skip Wyss, and I am with, as always, Dr. Julie Wyss, my beautiful, amazing wife, coming at you from Legacy Life Media Studios here in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And Dr. Julie, you have no idea what we're talking about today.
No clue.
Nope, so I'm coming at you with this postpartum intimacy.
No.
Let's get it. So let's jump right into this because I think after you have a baby, I think the last thing on a woman's mind is let's go have some sex again. Dr. Julie, what's your thought on that?
I think so. I know that there are some out there that are in the completely different camp, but I think the majority would feel that way. Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. And I think the reason why is because we just had ourselves a baby and we just went through pregnancy. But I think even more importantly is the fact that if we even went into the birth process alone, a lot of trauma happened in that area. I mean, the birth canal went through a lot. And
yeah, physical trauma, but like emotional trauma, mental trauma, the stress, right? So, I mean, if we talk just sex life in general, stress just changes hormones.
Yeah.
So then if we're stressed about baby, that's changing those hormones. We have baby hormones, we have everything is just out of control.
Well, I mean, let's just look at biology in general. So let's go into this hormonal cascade because I think this is really important to understand. You know, men out there, you obviously, your wife or your partner just had a baby. The last thing she wants is sex, trust me. But a lot of it has to do with hormonal balance. We went from being progesterone and estrogen dominant to now changing our sex drive because now we're looking at feeding a human life. And the last thing on our minds now is procreation, but thriving, getting our child to be feeding properly, putting weight onto our child. And those hormones are completely different, guys. So to look at this and see it as an insult where your spouse doesn't want to have sex with you or you can't get intimate. Now, intimacy is a total different ball game as well. Intimacy can be very awesome without physical touch. And we can go down to that cascade a little bit, but this hormonal deal is a big thing because the last thing on your wife's minds right now is being physically intimate with you because they are physically intimate with the baby.
That's the touch thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, right.
Like if you're constantly, I'm easily, right? Like I can be touched out. That if I'm with my kids all day or just holding them, feeding them, right? There comes a point of like, I just want my space back. And I think that's a big part of it. But then if you're a mom and you're breastfeeding, these things now turned into something totally different.
They're an immediate off switch. They are an immediate off switch. Find me one mom out there that wants anybody near their breast tissue besides their infant baby. Anyone. They will tell you, get away.
So it's sometimes it can be on the woman, it can be on the man. But I think just psychologically understanding that the feelings that you're having are normal. They're validated. But I think the biggest thing is, how do we navigate through that?
I think navigating through that is key to understanding what your wife wants and doesn't want. And I think that from a man's perspective, if you get really needy about this and you turn into a giant eggplant over this, it's not a good situation for you, because instead of putting your wife's needs first, the child's need first, you're putting yourself first. And guys, honestly, I think we can handle going 6 to 8 weeks without sexual intercourse, as our wives recover, recuperate, and actually get back into the mood of wanting to be around us, because we got them there in the first place. All right, let's just be honest.
Yeah, and there's other things that can be happening in that 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, sure.
To keep that kindled, to be able to rekindle that I think sometimes some people feel that it's like, well, if I can't have that, there's not going to be anything. And this is the time that, like, offering a massage, offering to draw a bathtub, offering to do different things, of like just checking in, of like, hey, can I help with dinner? Can I help out around the house? Those are all super important things then that can help make those 6 to 8 weeks go faster, and for the spouse, the wife, to not build resentment against that person.
Right. And if we look at the hormonal cascade, because I want to come back to this, so don't let me forget, because I want to put a bow on this hormonal thing. When your wives are breastfeeding, prolactin's being released, and oxytocin is still in the system as well. Those are two sexual reproduction shutdown hormones, massively shut down individuals. So the wife's sex drive is not going to be there. Her stress is going to be through the roof. We've talked about this before. If stress is high, cortisol is high, drops down progesterone, drops down estrogen, drops down testosterone, drops down any sort of sexual intimacy type chemicals. So you have to understand those first 2 months of your wife being postpartum, her stress is extremely high until she gets her routine, her pattern back under control. And that is a huge deal, because you, being a woman of wanting, I wouldn't say control, but order, you like structure to a lot of things. When things are not structured, you get super stressed. And the last thing on your mind is hanging out with me in an intimate intercourse type way.
Absolutely.
And we've talked about this in different parts of dating your spouse, and also just being intimate with one another. So if we come back to this intimacy now, and how can we have intimacy with our wives, I would challenge men out there to look at this 6 to 8 weeks, even 12 weeks postpartum, whenever your wife's ready to actually have sex with you again. Look at those first 8 weeks as a courting phase again, as a dating phase, but without physical intimacy or touch. And what I mean by that is, what can we do, gentlemen, to be on the hunt and be in the hunt of our wives and still keep this, I don't want to see a game, but definitely in this form of cat and mouse? Because it's fun. It might get exhausting and irritating, but it's fun. Because we know at the end of it, the reward is going to be pretty kick butt. But running a bath, you talked about understanding your wife's love languages. This is something super important, especially during this postpartum period, is what are the things that make her feel loved the most that you can do from a spouse perspective that then decreases stress on her? That's huge. What are some things now, Dr. Julia, you would recommend, being somebody that is an acts of service type individual? And a lot of women are acts of service and words of affirmation. So what can be done from your perspective, as far as what would you have liked to see done?
Acts of service. So if you're taking the role of stay-at-home mom, right, and like if you don't thrive in chaos and you're constantly caring for a child, that's where you're going to feel overwhelmed to consume, that maybe the laundry is building up, dishes are just out of control, planning a meal, just the day-to-day. And this is talking like if there's one child, what if there's like four, five, seven kids?
Even two can be a big difference.
So it's understanding that, and if it's acts of service, it's doing the dishes, it's loading the dishwasher, unloading the dishwasher, making dinner, all of those things that seem like daily routine that should be super simple to do. honestly, that mom is trying to build a bond with that baby.
Yep.
And building that bond is not like they don't come out and every baby isn't absolutely perfect, right? Chiropractic helps with that.
Chiropractic is a major
But if that
influence in
baby is struggling with feeding or pooping, colic, there's so many things that is playing through that mom's head. That mom
Yes.
just wants to be the absolute best. And if
Mhm.
that baby is crying all day long, those other things are going to hit, the wayside. That's not priority. And so she's trying to care for that baby, but then all of a sudden she looks at the clock and it's just like, my husband's coming home or my spouse is coming home. And then it's chaos and shutdown because you're realizing I don't have anything planned for dinner.
Yep.
The dishes still haven't been done from the 2 days ago.
Mhm.
And you come in the house and you're like, you maybe didn't even say anything, but you make that look of like, what did you do all day? Everything is just going to spiral.
In defense of men, though, we don't really know what that look is.
Yeah.
And, and that is something that guys out there, I don't think any of us in our right mind, I would hope, would come home and expect your spouse to be doing a bunch of stuff with a newborn. But if you are, you need to get your shit together because they've got a lot more going on than just making sure the dishes are clean. But also holding space and understanding that a lot of men are trying to adjust as well. And this is a big thing. So having an open line of communication with your wife, because having them not understand, but understand where you're coming from and know that you're working really hard to support your family as well, guys. But have an open line of communication with your wife and just say, babe, I'm exhausted too, but let's get through this together. Let's work on this together. And then so the other side of it is then from a guy's perspective is then how can you decrease the stress in the house? Now, what that means is like, don't come home and get the kids riled up unless you're going to step out. But the other side of it is how can you have your wife decompress? And that's maybe take the newborn from your wife, spend time with that newborn.
Yep. So, I mean, it could be that. It could be taking that child and then allowing her to go take a bath. Or maybe she enjoys doing the dishes and likes to lose herself in that, right? So understanding and I think really just setting the expectation of, okay, this is what I need for you to do. And most times that spouse is going to be like, okay, like sometimes they just want to be told what to do because they're in uncharted territory. They see and they feel the chaos. It's kind of like, what can I do? I don't think I can say anything, right? So allowing them to be able to do that or hiring somebody to come in to help them manage those things so the two of you can go and do something.
Yeah, having somebody come in, maybe watch the baby after a few months if you're comfortable, even that first month. Some moms are very comfortable with their child being watched very early on. Some moms are not. Some moms wait 6 months, even 8 months to a year before they let somebody watch their child. It just depends on your comfortableness, I don't even know if comfortableness is a word, but your comfort and your ability to pull away from the baby without feeling like you're abandoning them. Now, dads, on the other hand, when we had our babies and our kids, I was able to give you breaks at night. I was able to get up at night, get our baby up. When Peyton was up, I would go get her. Same thing with Brecken. Bring them into you. You would breastfeed, and then I would change baby, and then you'd finish out the other side. And that's how we went throughout the night. And then I would get back up and put baby back in their bed. Or you would sometimes. You would put them back in the crib or in their bassinet or whatever they were in. But that allowed you time as well. And I think the other thing is that men, honestly, we like to just know what you need. I really want to know what you need. So if I come home and I'm expected, hey, Skip, I need you to do the dishes when you come home. These are the things that I need your help with when you get home. It lets me know on my car ride home exactly what I need to be prepping for when I get home. Is Julie expecting me to come home and play with the kids right away? Or is she expecting me to come home and help with some of the chores and things around the house that she couldn't get through that day? And sometimes, guys, understanding your wife, just getting through the day, if the baby was not happy, if baby was sick, colicky, just her getting through the day and not having a hard breakdown or a postpartum issue or anything like that is win enough.
Yeah, we even talked about the postpartum depression thrown on the top of this.
Well, I want to talk about that next episode.
But that is that communication part of just setting the expectation. And I remember, like, I just thought that's what every couple did at night with nighttime feedings.
A lot don't.
That is not. And when we talk about that, and I talk with other moms, and they see the expression on my face, like, what do you mean your husband's not getting up to help? Well, they have to work in the morning. And I was like, yeah, but so do you.
So do you.
Stay-at-home mom. Like, if you'd hire somebody, you pay for a babysitter or a nanny, that costs something. When you're choosing to stay home, you may not be physically getting paid, but that is a job.
Well,
and so it is just as much important for you to be able to get that rest and have that shared experience, that it's just sometimes, again, I think that communication, that you could probably just ask your husband or your spouse of like, hey, when baby gets up at night, can you help? Most of them are going to be like, oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think on both sides, assumptions cannot be made. Communication has to be made. And what I mean by that is that you cannot assume that your husband knows he needs to get his ass out of bed. Just like guys out there, you cannot assume that your wife knows X, Y, and Z about you, that you need to sleep. But you need to have a conversation. And the other side is, as a team, because you're both in this together, and if you're not understanding that, you need to have a reevaluation and just talk, because both of you made this baby. You both came together. It's 50% you, Dad. It's 50% you, Mom. So going at this about a team, and I'll tell you right now, I would rather, and this might sound really out there, but I would rather have a team that's both people on the team are 75% tired than one person overtired and the other person getting massive amounts of sleep. Because what happens is envy will start. Where resentment of, and we went through this from an aspect of, I resented you for staying home with our kids and me having to go to coming into the office at Prime Family Chiropractic Centers, at that time Wyss Chiropractic, but coming into work, I resented you to stay home. You resented me for getting to leave and go take care of patients all day while you had to stay home with the kids. And it was trying to figure out that balance, but then understand then and hold space for each other of saying, okay, Julie is at home with the kids all day. When I go home, I have to go into dad mode now. And I have to go into a mode of, okay, how can I help my spouse? How can I take care of baby? Do I pick baby up? Do I go home and start making dinner right away? Does Julie need to actually lay down and take a nap? Has she taken a nap today? Because a lot of guys think sometimes that at times, like, my wife's just at home napping all day. And I'll tell you right now, no, if they're a woman of order, they're not napping. The minute their baby's asleep, they're doing stuff. They're trying to get ahead. But a lot of the times, mom just needs to take time to take a nap and sleep, to recoup, especially if you're breastfeeding. Especially if you're when you breastfeed, ladies, you are putting on an extra 500 to 1,000 calories a day being taken out of your body to produce breast milk. So that caloric load cannot be put into energy. Huge workout. You're carrying weights on the front of you all day anyways. But it's a huge workout. Now, going back to that, Jewel, and understanding intimacy postpartum, when do you think is a good time for couples to have sex again?
When it feels like it's okay.
Okay.
So again, I have this conversation with the women that have been in my class or that have concerns postpartum, that they go in for their 6-week checkup, because that's what somebody at one point said. 6 weeks is the good time for you to come in and get checked. But that check isn't always happening anymore.
Yeah.
The point of a 6-week checkup was, okay, if you had a baby vaginally, right, we're looking for any internal concerns.
Sure.
We're looking to make sure everything is healed properly. If we had a C-section, we're looking to make sure everything looks good, that there's nothing of concern. That's not what it is anymore. Lots of times it's, depending upon where you're living, it's coming in six weeks postpartum. Okay, are you breastfeeding? Do you have postpartum depression? Like, that's maybe when that's just starting, so you can't even tell. But it's, okay, have you thought about birth control methods?
That's the biggest thing. I was waiting for you to say that.
Just like this happens on the pediatrician side of when we talk about well visits, it's based off of somebody else's schedule. It is not a well child checkup. These 6-week checkups are talking birth control.
Yeah.
And so it's not about mom healing, mom's well-being. Do we have pelvic issues? Do we have prolapse issues? It's okay, 6 weeks, this is somebody set that milestone.
6 to 8.
That, okay, you're cleared for sex. What kind of birth control do you want?
Yeah, and that is a huge deal, because theoretically, in theory, a woman can possibly get her period back at 2 months postpartum. We've had moms get it back within 6 weeks. So I think what they've done in the allopathic community, and especially in that world of birth, is okay, 6 to 8 weeks. We don't want these moms getting pregnant again. Have your pets spayed or neutered like Bob Barker, and let's just keep them all from having babies. But when you're breastfeeding, the chance of you getting pregnant is low. You can still get it. You can still get pregnant. So all of these things do happen. But also, there are very few moms that I've met 6 months postpartum, 6 weeks postpartum, corrected, that want to have sex, that want to have intimacy with their partner right away in a physical nature. There's very few. And why we need to throw at this, because here's the other side of it, is that birth control, whether it's an IUD that is excreting a hormone like estrogen or progesterone, or taking the pill, is notorious for decreasing breast milk supply. What is the magic number that we get moms in? 2 months. They come in at 2 months. Their supply is off. They don't understand why. And what everybody labels it as is the 2-month milk regression. The 2-month, your supply, hey, honey, your supply goes down at 2 months. It's normal. No, it's not. Actually, at 2 months, your supply is changing. It's going from being very colostrum forward to now being more milk forward. Mm-hmm. So the immunology, the immune help coming across is changing, but your supply should actually be going up at 2 months.
It baffles me. Again,
it does baffle me too.
Like we say that just because it's common doesn't mean that it's normal.
Well, it's a form of population control, yep. Jewel. It's what it is. And I'm sorry, but it's just not how it works. It just doesn't. And most of these moms that do end up pregnant at 3 to 4 months post-pregnancy, unfortunately, that pregnancy does not end up staying viable because the body's not ready to sustain life again.
Absolutely. Body is not ready. We had 9 months, 10 months of growing something.
Yeah.
And to think in 6 weeks, all of that work that we did prior to that, in 6 weeks, everything is healed. That is, when we have a vaginal birth, like, we can walk around from the outside and look like a normal person. Mm-hmm. But these are the people that are walking around with a prolapsed uterus.
Yep.
Pelvic concerns, tilted pelvises, unaligned pelvises, mm-hmm. bladder leakage, painful sex that they find out later on, and nobody is talking about. But mm-hmm. because you had a vaginal birth, you look normal from the outside.
And you're going to have the same issues with a C-section birth mm-hmm. because your birth canal and everything still went through a lot of the birth processes, even when there was a surgery. Plus,
we've cut that open.
Yes.
All the stability that holds everything where it needs mm-hmm. to be is cut.
And it takes 6 to 8 weeks for that wound to completely heal. So there's a lot of trauma that goes on in that area, regardless if something went in or came out of that birth canal.
And I think that word trauma can be triggering because some people are going to be like, well, I had a beautiful birth. Mm-hmm. And so trauma doesn't mean that there was like red flags and ambulances and, right. and codes in a hospital. The act of birth is just traumatic
to the tissue, to the tissue, all of that. Mm-hmm. It's you went through a very beautiful fight. Yeah. Because all of your tissue, but your tissue's meant to.
It's meant to be able to tear, to regenerate, to grow, to stretch. That's the amazing thing that the body does. But again, to think that wasn't, that just doesn't happen, every weekend, or you go mm-hmm. to the gym every other day. Like, this was an event. And we need the time to heal.
So when we're talking about healing, so let's just can we go down healing? I think men and women need to understand this is the healing of the birth canal and vaginal tract postpartum. I think there are a few things that moms do get given that really do help, such as witch hazel to help with swelling of that area. You can use ice packs. They make inserts that line the inside of undergarments. All of that can help it heal, but it's not going to speed it up, but it helps with recovery. And I think that's super, super important, especially if a mom has tore. And tearing is one of those things that does happen, is fairly common, shouldn't be super, super severe, hopefully. If everything was done right up to birth and we had a good aligned birth canal and chiropractic was involved, because we've seen in our office that when chiropractic is involved with a Webster certified chiropractor, especially here at Prime Family Chiropractic Centers, our chance of tearing, episiotomies is tremendously reduced. Tremendously reduced. And if there's any form of tearing and there has to be stitching done to help repair that tissue, that can prolong healing of that area as well.
And I think like part of that healing is when they say like rest. Granted, yes, you have a newborn, but it's resting, and so that is like what you would call like a laying in time. Okay. And so that 6 to 8 weeks, like that's where like it's you and baby, like you're laying in that bed and you're feeding, and you should be having somebody at your beck and call, right? Mm-hmm. Like that is you laying in bed and you ring the bell, or you have somebody to come in and does the food service, does the cleaning during that time, because like, again, you're healing from this event. And if you want everything to go how you want it to be picture perfect after that 6 to 8 weeks, you need to have that time to heal. Because the longer that you put off that healing time in that 6 to 8 weeks and you push yourself and you're on your feet, it's only going to prolong that. And that is when additional issues come up over and over and over down, 6 months, 9 months, a year, 2 years.
Yep. We've seen women. We just had a phone call literally the other day of a new mom that gave us a call. Her latest pregnancy was 4 years ago. And she believes she has prolapse. She said that things don't feel right. She's noticed that things are way more forward towards the outside of her canal.
And they both are realizing it, her and the spouse.
Well, and I asked last time they had intercourse, and she said it's been months because we're both a little worried about what's going on here. And so all of these things need to be addressed. And husbands out there, we know you care. I know you care. You weren't in this situation if you didn't, as far as loving your spouse, taking care of her, taking care of your child, and understanding the spaces that need to be given. And I'm glad I had this conversation with you, Dr. Julie. You had no idea we were going to talk about this today.
If anybody takes anything from this podcast of, yes, set the expectation or have that conversation, but then that 6 to 8 weeks, if we're having struggles, we're having problems, please reach out, because many of the things that have been attributed to, well, that's common. We just took a picture, Peyton and I were at the store, of now men's diapers.
Oh yeah, that's back again.
These things are, it's not okay. We're making everything seem that it's okay for these things to be happening so that nobody needs to be embarrassed about it, because nobody talks about it.
Male incontinence and stuff.
We're talking about it. It is not okay. It is not normal. And we can help.
We can. And male incontinence is something that's never talked about past bedwetting and loss of bowels, all that stuff. That's all passed on to women as if it's only a women's problem. And it's 50-50. If you go in the aisles, you go into the dependent section, the adult diaper section, it's both men and women. You don't just see a shelf for women and a little block for men. It's the friggin' same. And all of this stuff is not okay. It is not normal. Your body should be able to function normally. It should be able to heal, and it should run a very precise and specific program. And the brain is what's running
geriatric diapers either.
No,
these guys are in their 20s and 30s. Yep. And so if we want to talk about sexual reproduction and longevity and fertility down the road, if 20 and 30-year-old men are wearing diapers, there is not going to be any babies
wearing diapers, taking Blue Chew, taking Hims, taking Viagra. All this stuff is now
survival of the fittest.
Well, it is. And men out there, guys, if you have any concerns, reach out to me, call me, talk to me, email me. You can email me directly at drskip@primefamilycenters.com. I will talk to you. I will help you. Same thing with Dr. Julie, but we just want a healthier population.
Where the little blue pill pops up.
That's right, and it's called chiropractic. And that's why we have this studio. That's why we have this network. And Legacy Life Media Studios and Legacy Life Media Network is here for people to have a legacy in their life, be happy, be healthy, raise an amazing family, and most importantly, just have the healthiest community ever. So Dr. Schooley, Dr. Julie, do you have anything else you'd like to contribute
Nope, that's
today?
it.
Nope, that's it. All right, everybody, go out there, get it done. We'll see you all next week. Take care, everybody. Bye.